I kicked out my girlfriend and stepdaughter after they tried to exclude me from her wedding that I'm paying for. So, my stepdaughter Sarah is getting married on August 3rd. The whole wedding planning thing has been eating up her and her mom's time for months now. I'm talking every conversation, every free minute. They're obsessing over it. I say her mom because, well, we've been living together for about 10 years, but we're not married. And honestly, after everything that's happened, I'm really glad we never tied the knot. Anyway, back to Sarah. She graduated last December from university, which, by the way, I paid for. It was a state school, so not like Ivy League expensive, but still, $40K is nothing to sneeze at. And it's not just college I helped with. I also bought her a car so she could get to and from school. She's been living with us throughout her college years, and even after she graduated, still no job. She just chills at the house while planning her wedding. Now let me tell you about her real dad, David. Total deadbeat. He pops in and out of her life like some ghost that only shows up when it suits him. He's never contributed a penny to her education, hasn't paid any child support. Don't even get me started on that. And yet Sarah worships the ground this guy walks on. Every time he shows up, she's all, dad this and dad that, like he's some kind of superhero. Meanwhile, I've been the one holding it all together, paying for everything, being there when she needed anything. It's frustrating, but honestly, I've always just chalked it up to Lisa, my girlfriend, enabling it. She never pushed for child support in the settlement and always made sure David had a place in Sarah's life, even when he'd disappear for months and break her heart over and over. Fast forward to the wedding planning. The venue holds about 250 people, which seems like a lot, but when you start adding up the bride's side, the groom's side, plus friends and family, it fills up fast. So, I figured, since I'm footing most of the bill, I should at least get to invite a handful of people. I'm not asking for much, just 20 people. Close friends, a couple family members, people who've been part of my life and helped me through the years. Lisa said, yeah, no problem, we'll take care of it, so I didn't think twice about it. Now here's where things start to go south. One Saturday, I'm out golfing with one of my buddies, Jake, who's on my list of 20 people I wanted at the wedding. Just casual talk, I asked him if he's coming, and he looks at me like I've got 3 heads. He says, nah, man, I didn't get an invite, but I got this announcement thing. So I'm like, what do you mean an announcement? And he goes to his car, digs around in the back seat through months of old mail and pulls out this envelope. Sure enough, it's a wedding announcement, not an invitation. And guess whose name isn't on there? Mine. It's got David's name, her real dad, and Lisa's name, but nowhere does it mention me. The guy who's paying for this whole thing? At that point, I could feel the heat rising in my face. I kept my cool, but inside I was furious. So later I go home and confront Lisa about it. And what does she say? Oh well, 250 is a tight number and we had to make some cuts. Wait, what? My people, the 20 people I wanted at this wedding, didn't make the cut? I'm the one bankrolling this thing, and I can't even have 20 of my own people there? It was one of those moments where you can't even believe what you're hearing. Like, how did this even happen? So I'm standing there, seething, while she's trying to explain how there just wasn't enough room and that if some people don't RSVP, maybe we could squeeze a couple of my people in. At this point, I'm already thinking of pulling the plug on this whole thing. I mean, if they're not going to respect me enough to include the few people I care about, why am I even involved? But the real kicker, not using that word, but you get what I mean, came the next day. Sunday dinner. We're at Sarah's fiancé's parents' house, just your typical family dinner. Except when we get there, guess who's at the table? Yep, David, the deadbeat dad himself. So we sit down to eat, and halfway through the meal, Sarah drops the bomb on us. She's all smiles, saying how excited she is because David is going to be able to make it to the wedding and, wait for it, he's going to be the one to give her away. The whole room erupts in excitement, like this is the best news ever. Her fiancé's family is clapping, David's grinning like he's just won the lottery, and I'm sitting there, feeling like I just got sucker punched in the gut. It was like everything inside me froze. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Here I am, the guy who's been there for her every step of the way, and now David, the guy who bailed on her over and over, is going to be the one to walk her down the aisle? I didn't know if I was going to cry, scream, or just flip the table over. I've never felt so disrespected in my entire life. I had to get up and do something, so I stood up and raised my glass. I'd like to make a toast, I said, and everyone goes quiet. You could hear a pin drop. I don't remember everything I said word for word, but the gist of it was this. It's been a pleasure being part of this family for the last 10 years, but today, Sarah and her fiancé have shown me something really important. I used to think I was someone special in this family, but now I see I'm just the guy who pays the bills. Since David is clearly the one who matters, I'll be stepping down from paying for this wedding. He can take care of it from here." You could see the shock spread across their faces. David looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. Sarah just sat there, wide-eyed, and Lisa had this look on her face like she couldn't believe what was happening. I finished my drink, set the glass down, and said, "You can all let yourselves out." And just like that, I was done. Done with the wedding, done with Sarah, and done with Lisa. I transferred the money out of our joint account that night and started making calls to the vendors the next morning. I wasn't going to bankroll a wedding that I wasn't even really a part of. So after that dinner, I didn't waste any time. I went home and started making moves. I was done. I transferred all the money out of the joint account that Lisa and I shared. I knew it was going to hit her hard because, let's be real, she hasn't had a job in years. She's been living off me for as long as I can remember. Every bill, every grocery, every damn thing in that house, it's been on me. And now she had the nerve to cut me out of this wedding and let David play the hero? Nah, not happening. I started with the vendors. First up was the photographer. I'd already paid a deposit, but I figured it was worth a shot to get it back. So I called the guy up, and he was actually pretty chill about it. Said he'd refund me most of it, minus a small fee for holding the date. Whatever, that was fine with me. Better to lose a couple $100 than pay for a whole wedding I'm not even invited to anymore, you know? Next was the caterer. This one had me a little worried because catering companies can be sticklers when it comes to refunds. But again, I lucked out. They had a waiting list of people wanting my date, so they didn't even blink when I asked for my money back. Full refund, no questions asked. At this point, I was feeling pretty good about my decision. Everything was falling into place. The only real hiccup was the venue. They wouldn't give me back the full deposit, but honestly, I expected that. They kept $1,500, which sucked. But considering I was about to drop $40-50K on this whole wedding, it was a small price to pay to get out of this disaster. Now, I'm not going to lie. Part of me was waiting for the fallout. I knew Lisa wasn't going to take this well, and I was just bracing for the explosion. But you know what? She didn't say anything that night. Not a word. I slept in the guest room, expecting her to come knocking at some point, maybe to yell or cry or something, but no. Silence. Honestly, that silence was worse than anything else. It was like she'd just given up, like she didn't care enough to even fight for me or our relationship. The next morning, things finally hit the fan. I was sitting at the kitchen table drinking my coffee when Lisa came in holding Sarah's wedding planner. She dropped it on the table in front of me like it was some kind of evidence in a court case. I didn't say anything, just stared at her, waiting for whatever rant she was about to unleash. "You're ruining everything," she finally said. Her voice was cold, not even angry, just defeated. I took a deep breath. "I didn't ruin anything, Lisa. You and Sarah made your choices. I'm just reacting to them." She thumbed through the planner, showing me all the details they'd planned out. The flowers, the decorations, the music, everything. I just stared at it, barely listening. I was done. The whole thing was meaningless to me now. But one thing did catch my eye. There was a whole section dedicated to the father-daughter dance. And guess who they picked all the songs for? David. Not me. David. That was the final nail in the coffin for me. I actually laughed. It was just so absurd at that point. I wasn't even a consideration in any of this. They didn't care about me. They cared about my wallet. "Look," I said, pushing the planner back toward her. "You and Sarah need to move out. I'm not paying for this wedding, and I'm done pretending like we're still a family. You can stay with her fiancé's family or find somewhere else, but you're not staying here." She didn't say much after that, just grabbed the planner and walked out of the room. I sat there for a while sipping my coffee, just thinking about everything. 10 years down the drain. It's funny how fast things can unravel when people show you who they really are. A few days went by without much happening. Lisa didn't try to talk to me, and Sarah avoided me like the plague. It was like we were strangers living in the same house. Then one morning, I woke up to find that they were packing. I didn't ask where they were going. I didn't care, as long as they were out. It was hard not to be petty while they packed. I wanted to throw some of their stuff in the garbage, just out of spite, but I held back. I didn't want to lower myself to their level. Besides, I'd already won by pulling the financial rug out from under them. Lisa kept giving me these dirty looks while she packed, but Sarah wouldn't even make eye contact. Good. I didn't want to see her face anyway. They left that afternoon. No goodbyes, no final words, just silence. I locked the door behind them, and it was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. The house was quiet, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like it was mine again. That night, I changed the locks. Call me paranoid. But I didn't trust that they wouldn't try to come back and pull some stunt. After everything they'd put me through, I wasn't taking any chances. With the new locks in place, I finally felt like I had control over my life again. I sat on the couch that night, cracked open a beer, and just relaxed. It was weird. I hadn't felt this calm in months. No more wedding stress, no more dealing with Sarah's entitled behavior, no more walking on eggshells around Lisa. I was free. A week later, I heard through the grapevine that they were trying to downsize the wedding. Apparently, Sarah's fiancé's parents were stepping in to help cover the costs, but even they weren't too thrilled about it. I guess Lisa had burned a few bridges along the way. And get this, she actually tried to write herself a check from our joint account the day after the blow-up. Too bad for her, I'd already moved the money. Nice try, though. Now, I'm not saying I'm happy about how things ended, but I'll be honest. I feel a hell of a lot better than I did before. I wasted too much time and money on people who didn't appreciate me. It's crazy how clear things become when you take a step back and really look at the situation. Looking back, I should have seen the signs way earlier. Sarah always had a thing for her real dad, and Lisa never put her foot down. I should have known I was just the guy paying the bills, nothing more. But hey, lesson learned, right? Now I get to move on with my life without the weight of their crap dragging me down. So yeah, that's where I'm at. The house is quiet, I've got my peace back, and I'm done with all their drama. If I hear more about the wedding, I'll let you guys know, but honestly, I'm not going out of my way to find out. Let them deal with their mess. I'm just glad I'm out of it. So after Lisa and Sarah moved out, things got quiet. Like, really quiet. It was weird at first. 10 years of noise and chaos, and now it's just me. I thought it'd feel lonely, but honestly, it was peaceful. No more wedding drama, no more worrying about Sarah's constant attitude, or Lisa guilt-tripping me. Just silence. But then came the aftermath, the part I didn't really expect. Once the dust settled, I started getting calls. And not just from Lisa or Sarah, nah, they stayed away, but from people who heard, through the grapevine, that I'd pulled the plug on the wedding. I guess word spreads fast when you've got drama this big. First call was from one of Lisa's friends, Maggie. She's always been one of those always in everyone's business types. She calls me up, acting all concerned like, "Oh, I heard what happened. Are you okay?" Now let me be clear. Maggie is not someone I'd consider my friend. She's Lisa's friend, the kind of person who always took Lisa's side in every little argument we ever had. So when she's pretending to care, I know it's just because she's fishing for gossip. I wasn't in the mood for that crap. "Maggie, I'm fine," I told her. "It is what it is. Sarah and Lisa made their choices. I made mine." That wasn't good enough for her. She kept pushing, asking for details, trying to make it sound like she was worried about me. I could tell she just wanted to hear me badmouth Lisa or Sarah, but I wasn't giving her the satisfaction. "Well," she said, "I just think you should know that Sarah's really hurt. She didn't mean to exclude you like that." "Oh, really? She didn't mean to? I mean, how do you accidentally exclude someone from their own life?" I bit my tongue, though, because the last thing I needed was more drama. I kept it short and ended the call, but I knew that wasn't the last of it, and I was right. A couple days later, I got a call from Sarah's fiancé's mom, Joyce. Now I'd always thought Joyce was nice. We weren't close or anything, but she seemed like a reasonable person. This call was different, though. She was pissed. She jumped right into it. No small talk, just pure anger. "You've ruined everything," she yelled. "Do you have any idea what you've done to Sarah and Lisa? This wedding was supposed to be perfect, and now they're scrambling to fix your mess." I didn't even know where to start. Here's this woman who has never paid for anything, telling me I've ruined things because I stopped paying for a wedding I wasn't even invited to. I took a deep breath and tried to keep my cool. "Joyce, I didn't ruin anything. Sarah and Lisa did this to themselves. I'm not paying for a wedding that I've been excluded from. If they want a wedding, they can figure it out." She wasn't having it. She went on and on about how I was being selfish and how I should have just sucked it up for Sarah's sake. And the best part, she even suggested that I should still come to the wedding. For appearances. Yeah, because pretending everything's fine after being disrespected is exactly what I'm interested in doing. I told her, "Look, Joyce, if you're so concerned about the wedding, why don't you pay for it? I'm done." She didn't have much to say after that, just muttered something under her breath and hung up. That was the last time I heard from her, thank God. But it didn't stop there. Sarah finally decided to reach out, about a week after she and Lisa moved out. She texted me, which honestly kind of pissed me off. Like, she couldn't even call? After everything that happened, she just sends a quick text like it's no big deal. Her message was short and to the point. "I'm really disappointed in how you handled things. I thought you'd be more understanding." Understanding? I stared at that message for a good 5 minutes before I even knew how to respond. Understanding? She seriously thought I was the one who needed to be more understanding? I've spent the last 10 years supporting her, paying for her education, her car, and now her wedding, and she thought I needed to be more understanding. I finally texted back, "I'm disappointed too, Sarah, but I've done enough for you. I'm not paying for a wedding that I'm not part of. Good luck with everything." That was it. She never replied. No apology, no explanation, nothing. Just silence. And honestly, that hurt more than I thought it would. I wasn't expecting her to grovel or anything, but I guess part of me hoped she'd realize how much she'd screwed up. But no, nothing. After that, things went quiet again. No more calls, no more texts. It was like they'd all just erased me from their lives, which I guess was for the best. But even though the drama had died down, I couldn't help but feel like I was mourning something. 10 years of my life, and now it was all gone. Lisa, Sarah, the future I thought we had, it was all just over. I started getting back into my routine, though. Work kept me busy, and I reconnected with some old friends. It was weird at first, not having Lisa around, but eventually I started to feel like myself again. I realized how much of my energy had been spent on keeping that relationship going, even when it was clear I wasn't getting anything back. One night I ran into Jake again, the buddy who hadn't been invited to the wedding. I told him everything that had gone down. He just shook his head and laughed. "Man, you dodged a bullet," he said. "If they couldn't even respect you for this, imagine how things would have been down the line." He was right. I'd spent so much time trying to make things work with Lisa and Sarah, thinking that one day they'd appreciate me, but it was never going to happen. And honestly, I'm better off without them. So yeah, that's where things stand. I haven't heard anything about the wedding since then, and I don't really care to. Lisa and Sarah made their choices, and I made mine. I'm moving on with my life, and it feels good to finally be free of their drama. If there's one thing I've learned through all this, it's that you can't force people to respect you. No matter how much you do for them, if they don't see your worth, they never will. And that's fine. I'm done trying to prove myself to people who don't care. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a quiet night ahead of me. No more wedding stress, no more family drama, just peace. Update 1. So, a couple of weeks after everything settled down, I was starting to get used to my new routine. Life was quieter, a lot less stressful. I had the house to myself, and for the first time in a long while, it actually felt like my home again. I thought I'd finally left all the drama behind, but of course, that wasn't going to happen. I should have known better. It started on a random Thursday afternoon. I was at work going about my day like normal, when I get this call from a number I didn't recognize. Now, I usually ignore those, but for some reason, I picked up this time. And guess who it was? David. Yeah, that David. The real dad. I hadn't spoken to this guy in years, and suddenly he's calling me out of nowhere. At first, I wasn't even sure what to say. I just stood there, holding the phone, half expecting him to apologize or maybe say something to explain why he's calling me. But no, he jumped straight into it like we're old pals. "Hey man, listen, I need to talk to you about something important," he says, his voice all casual, like this is just a normal chat. I'm thinking, what the hell does this guy want? But I stayed calm. Okay, what's up?" Then he hits me with the craziest thing I've ever heard. He starts telling me how he's been hearing from Sarah and Lisa about how I've overreacted by pulling out of the wedding. Overreacted. This guy, who's barely been in Sarah's life, has the audacity to call me up and say I'm the one in the wrong? He said something about how I should have just let it go for Sarah's sake, that I should have been the bigger person and stayed involved. I was fuming. Here's this guy who swoops in at the last minute to play the role of the loving dad, telling me how I should have handled the situation? The same guy who abandoned her over and over again while I was there every day, paying for everything, making sure she had what she needed? I couldn't believe it, but it gets worse. After lecturing me about how I was wrong, he drops the real reason he's calling. Apparently, Sarah and her fiancé were struggling to make ends meet with the wedding after I pulled out, and David was trying to convince me to pitch in again. He actually had the nerve to ask if I could help him pay for the wedding. The same wedding I wasn't even invited to. I couldn't help it. I started laughing. I didn't mean to, but the whole thing was just too ridiculous. This guy seriously thought I'd hand over my hard-earned money to bail him out after he and Sarah pushed me aside? Nah, not a chance. "David," I said, still trying to stop myself from laughing, "there's no way I'm giving you a single cent. You and Sarah made your choices. You want to play dad? Go ahead and pay for the wedding yourself." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and for a second, I thought maybe he'd hung up. But then he sighed and said, "Come on, man. We're family. This is for Sarah's happiness." That hit a nerve. Family? I've spent 10 years trying to be there for Sarah, trying to build a family with her and Lisa. And now, suddenly, he's family because it's convenient? I wasn't having any of it. We're not family, I said, my voice harder than I meant it to be. You haven't been around. You don't get to play the family card now just because it suits you. If you really care about Sarah, then you figure it out. I'm done. And then I hung up. I'm not proud of it, but at that moment, I didn't care. I was done being the nice guy, done being walked over. The whole thing left a bad taste in my mouth, though. It wasn't just the fact that David had the nerve to call me. It was the fact that Sarah and Lisa were still trying to use me, even after I made it clear I was out. I couldn't believe they were desperate enough to send David to try and get money out of me. But if you thought that was the end, oh boy, you'd be wrong. A few days later, I get another call. This time, it's from Sarah herself. She hadn't spoken to me since the whole wedding debacle went down, so I figured something must have happened. Part of me thought, maybe she's realized what a mess this has all been and wants to apologize. Stupid, right? I answer the phone, and before I can even get a word in, she's already going off. Why are you making things harder for everyone? Do you know how much stress you've put me under? You should have just gone along with it. Why couldn't you just be supportive? I'm standing there, phone in hand, just stunned. I don't even know how to respond at first because it's like she's talking to a different version of me, one who apparently hasn't done anything for her over the last decade. Sarah, I said, trying to stay calm, I was supportive. I've been supporting you for 10 years. I paid for your school, your car, everything. But I'm not paying for a wedding I've been cut out of. That's not how this works. She wasn't having it. She kept going on about how I was ruining everything and how I needed to stop being selfish. I couldn't believe it. Here I was, the guy who had been there for her every step of the way, and now I'm the selfish one because I won't bankroll a wedding where I've been erased. That's when I realized I wasn't dealing with the same Sarah anymore. The Sarah I helped raise, the one I'd spent years supporting, was gone. She had been replaced by someone who only saw me as a means to an end. As long as I was paying, I was useful. But the moment I said no, I was the villain. It hurt, more than I'd like to admit. But in that moment, I made peace with it. I wasn't going to change her mind, and I wasn't going to win this argument. I'd already won by walking away from the wedding, and that was enough. Look, Sarah, I said, my voice steady. You've made your choices. I've made mine. I wish you and your fiancé the best, but I'm done. You're on your own. And that was it. She didn't reply, just hung up. After that, I knew I had to close this chapter for good. I was done being the guy they turned to only when they needed something. I deserved better than that. So I started focusing on myself, my job, my friends, my life. And you know what? It felt good. Sure, it stung at first, but sometimes you have to walk away from people who don't see your value. And that's exactly what I did. Update 2. So, after all the crap with Sarah and David calling me to basically beg for money, things started to calm down. Or at least I thought they did. I guess when you cut people out of your life, you expect everything to just stop. Like, the drama goes away and you finally get to live in peace. I was about to learn it doesn't work like that, not with people like Sarah and Lisa. A few weeks after Sarah's last call, I get home from work, and there's this letter in my mailbox. No return address, just my name scribbled on the front. I already had a bad feeling about it before I even opened the thing. Sure enough, it's from Lisa. The letter was full of the usual garbage. She starts by acting like she's trying to be reasonable, saying she understands why I pulled out of the wedding, but that it was unfair to leave them scrambling. She said I should have had more respect for Sarah's feelings and helped her out for old time's sake. Yeah, right, like I'm gonna forget everything that's happened and just swoop back in with my wallet because they can't figure out how to pay for their own mess. But then Lisa goes further. She actually tries to guilt trip me by saying Sarah's struggling with depression now because of everything that's happened. She writes, "She's been really down ever since you cut her out, and it's affecting her mental health. I'm worried about her. Maybe if you could sit down with her and have a heart-to-heart, things would be different." That hit me harder than I expected. Not because I believed her, but because part of me wanted to. I'd spent 10 years raising Sarah like my own kid, and even after all this, there was a small part of me that still wanted to make things right. But I couldn't. I knew if I went back into their lives, it'd be the same cycle all over again, me giving, them taking, and me ending up feeling used. I threw the letter in the trash and went inside. I wasn't about to let them drag me back into their drama. Still, it stuck with me for a few days. I kept thinking, what if she's really struggling? What if I'm the one who pushed her over the edge? But then I remembered everything Sarah did, how she cut me out of the wedding, how she replaced me with David. This wasn't my mess to fix. They made their choices, and I made mine. A couple weeks later, I got a call from Jake, my buddy from the golf course. He's been one of the few people who's stuck by me through all this. He invites me over for a barbecue, says he's got some news. I figure, why not? It's been a while since I hung out with the guys, and I could use a distraction. So I head over to Jake's place, and as soon as I walk in, I can tell something's up. There's this weird energy in the air, like everyone knows something I don't. We're all standing around the grill, cracking open a couple beers, when Jake pulls me aside. "Dude, you're not gonna believe this," he says, grinning like he's about to drop the juiciest gossip ever. I roll my eyes, expecting some dumb story about one of the guys getting into trouble, but then he hits me with it. Sarah's wedding got canceled. I almost spit out my beer. What, canceled? Like, completely? He nods, and I can see he's trying not to laugh. Yeah, man. Apparently, there was some big blow-up between her and her fiancé's family, and the whole thing just fell apart. I didn't know whether to laugh or feel sorry for her. Part of me was like, serves her right. But another part of me remembered all the time and money I had put into that wedding before everything went sideways. All those months of planning, all the drama, and now it was just over. I asked Jake for more details, and he told me that Sarah's fiancé's family wasn't too happy with how things had been going. Turns out, Sarah and Lisa had been pushing for an even bigger wedding than they originally planned, and when they couldn't afford it without my help, they tried to get her fiancé's parents to cover the difference. Apparently, that didn't go over too well, and after a few big arguments, the whole thing just collapsed. Part of me wanted to reach out to Sarah, maybe to see how she was holding up, but I stopped myself. I knew if I got involved again, it'd just drag me back into the drama. And honestly, after everything they put me through, I didn't owe them anything. The barbecue went on, and I tried not to think too much about it. But later that night, when I got home, it hit me. This was it. The wedding was canceled, the relationship was done, and there was nothing left to tie me to Sarah or Lisa anymore. It was a weird feeling, like I had finally closed the book on this whole chapter of my life. Over the next few weeks, I started focusing more on myself. I picked up some new hobbies, spent more time with friends, and even started dating again. It felt good to move on, like I was finally living for me instead of always worrying about someone else's problems. One day, out of the blue, yeah, I know I'm not supposed to use that phrase, but screw it, I got a text from Lisa. I hadn't heard from her since the letter she sent about Sarah's depression. The message was short and cold. Just wanted to let you know we're moving out of state. Sarah's starting over. I stared at my phone for a while after reading it, trying to process how I felt. I guess part of me was relieved. Them moving away meant I wouldn't have to worry about running into them or dealing with their drama again. But another part of me felt empty. Not sad exactly, but like something had finally come to an end, and I wasn't sure how to feel about it. I didn't respond to the text. There was nothing left to say. So, that's where things stand now. Sarah and Lisa are out of my life for good, and I'm finally free. It took a lot of crap to get here, but I feel like I've come out the other side stronger. Sure, it still stings sometimes, thinking about how things ended, but I've learned that some people just aren't worth the effort. You can bend over backward for them, but if they don't see your worth, it's never going to work. And now, I'm just focusing on me. It's funny how much better life gets when you stop putting your energy into people who don't appreciate it. Anyway, thanks for sticking around through all of this. Life's looking up, and I'm ready for whatever comes next. No more drama, no more games, just peace. My insane girlfriend drunkenly confessed to my friend that she is pregnant from her ex and plans to make me take care of the baby. Alright, so here's how it all started. One night, we were at this party that some friend of ours threw. It was nothing too fancy, just your usual hangout with people from school, you know? I was there with my girlfriend, Jessica. We'd been together since high school, about 3 years at this point. I really thought we had a future together, like, I was actually planning stuff with her. Marriage, traveling, even kids at some point. She was the girl I thought I'd be with for life. But man, that night changed everything. You ever get one of those moments where you can feel something's just off, but you can't really put your finger on it? Well, that was me. Jessica was acting kind of weird, but I didn't think much of it. She was talking with everyone, laughing a little too loud, just being extra. I figured she was just having fun, no big deal. So, I'm standing there, talking with a couple of my buddies, and that's when my friend Matt comes rushing up to me. And when I say rushing, I mean rushing. He had this look on his face like he didn't even know how to say what he had to say. I thought maybe someone had spilled a drink on my car or something stupid like that. But nope, it was way worse than anything I could have imagined. Matt grabs my arm, pulls me aside and goes, "Dude, I need to tell you something. Like, now." At this point, I'm starting to get a little freaked out because Matt's normally the chillest guy I know. He doesn't get worked up over much, so seeing him like this made my stomach drop. I'm like, all right, man, what's up? And he hesitates for a second, looks around to make sure no one's listening, and then he says it. Jessica just told me she's been hooking up with Ryan. Now, for context, Ryan is her ex-boyfriend from freshman year. They broke up way before we got together, but she always described their relationship as nothing serious, just some high school thing that didn't mean much. So hearing his name again, and in this way it felt like my brain couldn't even process it. I just stared at Matt for a second, not really understanding what he was saying. Wait, what do you mean she's been hooking up with Ryan? Like, are you serious right now? Matt nods, and he looks like he's gonna throw up. She told me they've been sleeping together for months. And that's not even the worst part, dude. She's pregnant. She said it's his. At this point, my heart is pounding. I'm feeling all kinds of things. Confusion, anger, betrayal, you name it. And the worst part was, I couldn't even do anything right then. I was in shock. I mean, we'd been together for years, and I thought we had something real. I was already planning on going to my dream college, and now, out of nowhere, I'm hearing that my girlfriend's pregnant with her ex's baby? But Matt wasn't done. She also said she plans to make you raise it. That was it. That's when the world stopped for me. Everything I thought I knew about Jessica, about our relationship, just crumbled right there. The idea that she'd not only cheat on me, but then plan to trap me into taking care of a kid that wasn't even mine? I felt sick to my stomach. So I'm standing there, trying to keep it together, but I can't. I'm feeling so many things at once. Betrayed, heartbroken, and yeah, furious. I couldn't believe the girl I'd spent years with, the one I thought I was going to marry, could do something like this. I just remember looking at Matt and saying, I gotta go. I couldn't stay there anymore. I couldn't be around people, around Jessica. I had to get out of there before I lost it. I went home that night, but sleep? No way that was happening. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head over and over again. I thought about all the times I had caught little things, like when I saw her texting Ryan a few months ago. I asked her about it and she brushed it off, saying it was just puppy love and nothing serious. She even had the nerve to ask if they could hang out because they were just friends now. Like an idiot, I trusted her. I figured if we were going to make it through college, we'd have to trust each other, right? God, I felt like such an idiot. The next morning, I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't just pretend I didn't know. I went over to her place, and the second she opened the door, I knew she was guilty. She tried to act surprised, like she didn't know why I was there, but I could see it in her eyes. She knew. I sat down on her couch, my heart racing, and I just asked her straight up, "Did you tell Matt you've been sleeping with Ryan?" Her face went pale. She tried to play dumb, laughing it off, saying something like, "Oh, that? I was just joking around. I was drunk and I thought it would be funny." I wasn't laughing. "You think it's funny to say you're pregnant with someone else's baby and that you're going to make me take care of it? You think that's funny?" She froze. And for a second, I thought maybe, just maybe, it was some twisted joke. But then I saw her eyes dart toward the door like she was ready to run. That's when I knew it was all real. I didn't even give her time to lie anymore. I pulled out the pregnancy test I'd picked up on the way over and tossed it on the coffee table. "Take it." Her hands started shaking, and that's when she broke down. "I'm sorry, okay? I messed up. It was only once. I don't even know if it's his for sure, but I need you, please. You're the better guy. I know you'd be a great dad." I couldn't believe the nerve of her. She was sitting there, crying, trying to make me feel bad for her when she's the one who betrayed me. I stood up and she grabbed my arm, begging me not to leave. But I couldn't stay, not after that. "I'm done," I told her. "We're done. You made your choice, and now you gotta deal with it." As I walked out, she kept calling after me, saying she loved me, saying it was all a mistake. But I couldn't even hear it. All I could think about was how I'd wasted 3 years of my life with someone who didn't even respect me enough to be honest. And that was just the beginning of the nightmare. So after that whole mess with Jessica, things just kept getting worse. I was trying to move on, but she wasn't having it. Like, I thought breaking up with her would mean things were over, but apparently she didn't get the memo. It's like she couldn't accept the fact that I wasn't coming back no matter how clear I made it. A few days after I left her place, she started blowing up my phone. Calls, texts, everything. She kept saying she wanted to explain or fix things, but honestly, there was nothing left to fix. The trust was gone. It was all gone. I'd see her name pop up on my screen and my stomach would just drop. I couldn't even bring myself to answer. I knew it would just be more of her trying to manipulate me into taking her back, or worse, trying to convince me to raise this kid that wasn't even mine. But the thing is, she didn't stop at just calling me. No, she took things up a notch. One evening, I was chilling at home, trying to just distract myself from everything, when my mom called me from downstairs. She sounded annoyed, so I knew something was up. I went down, and there she was, Jessica, standing on my doorstep, crying her eyes out, begging to talk to me. My mom didn't know the full story at this point, so she just looked confused. But I knew exactly what was going on. I walked down the stairs, and Jessica just launched into this whole emotional breakdown, saying how scared and alone she felt, how she made a mistake, and that she needed me. It was a mess. I wasn't ready for it, honestly. I mean, how do you even respond to that when you're the one who got stabbed in the back? But I knew I had to stay strong. I told her straight up that there was nothing left to talk about. We were done. Over. I didn't want to be with someone who could do that to me. She started crying harder, of course, trying to guilt-trip me like always. She begged me to just listen, and I figured maybe if I gave her 5 minutes, she'd leave me alone after. Spoiler, that didn't happen. So we went up to my room to talk, and the second she sat on my bed, it was like someone turned on a faucet. She started bawling again, saying how she still loved me and how Ryan didn't mean anything to her. She kept saying it was just one mistake, and that she wanted me to be the one to raise the baby because I'd be such a good dad. I could barely keep my cool at this point. I mean, really? I told her, as calmly as I could, that I wasn't interested in raising her ex's kid, no matter what. I wasn't even interested in being with her anymore. She couldn't understand why. She actually asked me why I wouldn't stay with her if the baby was mine, like she was expecting me to just forget the cheating. I just sat there, staring at her, completely stunned that she didn't get it. So I told her again, slowly, that I wasn't going to be with her even if the baby turned out to be mine. She tried arguing, saying it was just one time, and that she made a mistake, but I wasn't having it. Finally, after what felt like hours of this back and forth, I asked her to leave. She didn't want to go, but I told her there was nothing more to say. We were done. I had to practically push her out the door. She was still crying, still begging for another chance, but I just couldn't take it anymore. I needed her out of my life. But here's the thing. She didn't stop. Over the next few weeks, she kept showing up at my house unannounced, calling me nonstop, texting me about random stuff that had nothing to do with the baby. It was like she was trying to act like we were still together, even though I made it clear that we were over. There was this one time, this was probably the worst of it, where she showed up at my house at like 10 p.m. I was in my room, minding my own business, when I heard a knock on the door. I figured it was my mom or dad, but when I opened it, there was Jessica, standing there with this weird, desperate look on her face. Before I could say anything, she stepped into my room and tried to kiss me. I pushed her back, completely caught off guard. I couldn't believe she thought that was okay. I told her again, as firmly as I could, that we weren't together, and that I didn't want her showing up like this anymore. She got all teary-eyed again, saying she was so sad, and that the baby could feel her sadness or some nonsense. She kept trying to use that as an excuse to hang out with me. I had to stand my ground. I told her she needed to leave, and if she kept pulling this, I'd have to block her completely and cut off all contact. That seemed to finally get through to her, at least for a little while. But the worst part was, even though I knew I had to cut her out, it still hurt. Every time I saw her face or heard her voice, it reminded me of everything we were supposed to have. We were supposed to have a future together, and now all I could see was the betrayal. It was like this constant tug of war in my head. One part of me still wanted to be with her, the girl I thought I knew, but the other part of me knew that she wasn't that person anymore. Eventually, after what felt like forever, the results of the paternity test came back. I remember the exact moment I got the call. My heart was pounding in my chest as the doctor on the other end of the line confirmed what I already knew deep down. The baby wasn't mine. Relief and sadness hit me at the same time. On one hand, I was glad I wasn't tied to Jessica for the rest of my life, but on the other hand, it was the final nail in the coffin of our relationship. There was no coming back from this. Not that there ever was. I thought that would be the end of it, but Jessica, she had other plans. She kept trying to convince me to be the father anyway, because according to her, I was still the better choice. I told her to talk to Ryan since he was the real father, but she admitted that he didn't want anything to do with the baby and wanted her to terminate the pregnancy. I stood my ground. I told her it wasn't my responsibility anymore. She made her choice, and now she had to deal with it. But even then, it didn't feel good to say it. Deep down, it hurt, knowing that this kid would grow up without a dad. But I wasn't going to let her guilt me into being a part of this mess. It was a weird mix of relief and pain. I wasn't trapped with her, but it still hurt knowing that everything I thought we had was gone for good. Update 1. After everything that had already happened, I thought things couldn't get any crazier. I really did. I figured once the paternity test came back and proved I wasn't the father, Jessica would get the picture and finally leave me alone. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that I shouldn't expect anything when it comes to her. So a few weeks after I got the paternity results, I was starting to get my life back together. I had stopped answering her calls and texts, and she wasn't showing up at my house as much. It felt like things were getting back to normal, or at least as normal as they could be after everything that went down. But then, one night, I was just chilling in my room, trying to focus on my college plans when my phone buzzed. It was my dad. He never calls this late unless something's up, so I picked up right away. "Hey, what's going on?" I asked, trying to sound casual, but I could hear the tension in his voice. "Did you get a girl pregnant and ditch her?" he asked, and I could tell he was trying to keep calm. My heart sank. I knew immediately this had to be Jessica. There's no way he'd just ask me that out of nowhere. "What are you talking about?" I replied, even though I knew exactly what was going on. "Jessica came by the house earlier today," he explained. "She's saying you're the father of her baby and that you've been ignoring her." I couldn't believe it. After everything, she was still trying to pull this crap? She knew I wasn't the father. She knew. But here she was, going behind my back, telling my parents some twisted version of the story. "She's lying," I said, trying to stay calm but feeling my blood start to boil. "I'm not the father. I got a paternity test, and it proved it wasn't mine. She cheated on me with her ex, Ryan. He's the one who got her pregnant." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could tell my dad was trying to wrap his head around it. "You have the test results?" "Yeah," I said. "I have them. I'll show you if you want, but trust me, she's lying." He sighed. "All right, I believe you. I wish you'd told us sooner. Your mom was pretty upset." "I get it. I probably should have filled them in earlier, but honestly, I didn't want to drag them into the mess. I was trying to handle it on my own, and I didn't expect Jessica to go this far. I told my dad I'd talk to my mom and clear things up, but I was fuming. I couldn't believe Jessica had the nerve to go to my parents' house and tell them I'd abandoned her. It was like she couldn't accept that I wasn't going to play her game anymore, so she was trying to drag my family into it. The next day, I talked to my mom. She was obviously upset but relieved when I showed her the paternity test results. It was hard seeing her so sad over the whole thing. Jessica had apparently broken down in front of her, crying and playing the victim card, saying how she was scared and alone and how I was the only one who could help her. "She made it seem so real," my mom said, shaking her head. "I can't believe she would lie like that." I couldn't either, but that's what Jessica did. She lied. She manipulated. And now she was trying to drag my family into her mess. With my parents on my side, I thought maybe that would be the end of it. Maybe now that she knew I had told everyone the truth, she'd finally leave me alone. But of course she didn't. A few days later, I got a message from one of my friends. "Dude, have you seen Jessica's social media?" he asked. I hadn't. I was doing my best to stay away from anything that had to do with her. But out of curiosity, I checked. And there it was, this long post about how she was going through the hardest time of her life and how she was being abandoned by the father of her child. She didn't mention me by name, but it was obvious who she was talking about. People in the comments were posting stuff like, "Stay strong, girl," and "You're going to be a great mom even if the dad's not in the picture." It was infuriating. She was spinning this whole narrative, making me look like the bad guy, and I couldn't even defend myself without making things worse. I mean, what was I supposed to do? Comment on her post like, "Actually, I'm not the father and she cheated on me with her ex"? That would just add fuel to the fire. I was venting to my friend Matt about it later that night. He's the one who told me about Jessica in the first place, so he's been there through all of this. "Man, she's not going to stop," he said. "She's trying to ruin your life because she can't handle the fact that you're not going to take her back." I knew he was right, and it sucked because there was really nothing I could do to stop her. She was going to keep telling people whatever she wanted, and I just had to live with it. The breaking point came a few weeks later when she showed up at my work. I was in the middle of my shift when I saw her walk in. My stomach dropped. I hadn't seen her in person since the whole paternity test thing, and I wasn't ready for this. She came right up to me, completely ignoring the fact that I was at work. "We need to talk," she said, her voice low and serious. I pulled her aside, trying to keep things as calm as possible. "What do you want, Jessica?" "I can't do this alone," she said, her eyes welling up with tears. "You were supposed to help me. You were supposed to be there for me." "I'm not the father," I told her, for what felt like the millionth time. "I've done everything I can. You need to let this go." She didn't listen. She just kept going on and on about how scared she was, how she didn't know what to do without me. It was like she didn't even hear me when I said we were done. I'm not going to be a part of this, I said firmly. You need to figure this out with Ryan. I'm not going to raise his kid. That's when she lost it. She started crying, loudly, right there in the middle of my work. People were staring, and I felt like the ground was falling out from under me. I wanted to disappear. I love you, she yelled through her tears. You're the one I'm supposed to be with. It was a nightmare. I had to call my manager to get her out of the building, and the whole time she was screaming about how I was abandoning her and the baby. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, judging me, even though I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. That night, I knew I had to cut all ties with her completely. I blocked her number, her social media, everything. I told my parents not to answer if she showed up again, and I told my friends to stop telling me what she was posting online. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. I thought I could get through it all quietly, but Jessica had other plans. Update 2. Alright, so after that meltdown Jessica had at my work, I thought I'd hit rock bottom with her antics. But oh man, I had no idea how much worse it could get. You'd think after getting her kicked out of my job and blocking her on everything, she'd get the message. She didn't. Not even close. A few days after the whole work incident, I was at home, finally starting to feel like I could breathe again. I'd cut her out, blocked her number, deleted her from all my social media. I wasn't hearing from her directly anymore, so I thought I was in the clear. But then, my mom called me into the living room. She had this weird look on her face, like she didn't know how to say what she was about to say. Your dad and I got something in the mail today, she said, holding out this envelope. I took it and opened it up, and my stomach dropped. It was a letter from a lawyer. Jessica was trying to sue me for child support, for a baby that wasn't even mine. Now, you might be wondering how she could possibly think this was going to work. Well, turns out, she was claiming that because we had been in a relationship for so long, and she was pregnant during that time, I should be responsible for helping her out financially. She was saying that I had acted as a father figure, and that meant I should have to pay. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I was furious. This girl had not only cheated on me and lied about the baby being mine, but now she was trying to drag me into court over it? I couldn't let this slide. I immediately called my dad. I knew he'd have some advice, and he was just as angry as I was. You need to get a lawyer, he said. Don't let her get away with this. She's just trying to mess with your life. So that's exactly what I did. I found a lawyer and explained the whole situation. He was pretty confident that the case wouldn't hold up in court, especially since I had the paternity test proving the baby wasn't mine. But still, it was a hassle I didn't need. Just the thought of having to go to court, sit in front of a judge, and deal with Jessica again made me sick to my stomach. A few weeks later, the court date rolled around. I walked into that courtroom feeling nervous as hell. I mean, yeah, I had all the evidence on my side, but still it was nerve-wracking. Jessica was there, sitting at the other table, looking all smug like she thought she was about to win something. It took everything in me not to lose my cool. The judge started going through the paperwork, and my lawyer presented the paternity test right off the bat. I could see Jessica's face change when he brought it up. She went from looking confident to suddenly shifting in her seat, like she realized she might have messed up. The judge took one look at the results and then asked Jessica's lawyer why they were even here if I wasn't the father. Her lawyer tried to make some excuse about emotional bonds or some nonsense like that, but it wasn't working. The judge wasn't having it. I'll never forget what the judge said next. He looked right at Jessica and said, "Miss, this young man is not the father of your child, and there's no legal obligation for him to support you. This case is dismissed." I let out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. It was finally over. I thought, finally, I'm done with this nightmare. But of course it wasn't that simple. Even after the court case was thrown out, Jessica didn't back off. She doubled down on her harassment. She started sending me these weird, guilt-tripping messages from random phone numbers, talking about how she was ruined because of me, how she was struggling to make ends meet, and how her life was falling apart. She made it sound like it was my fault that Ryan didn't want to step up and be a dad. Like I was somehow responsible for her entire situation. I didn't respond. I couldn't. What was I supposed to say to that? I wasn't going to let her drag me back into her mess. The next few weeks were quiet. I started focusing on my own life again, working extra shifts, planning for college, trying to rebuild some of the peace she had destroyed. But every time I started to feel normal again, something else would happen. One day I came home from work, and my mom was sitting at the kitchen table, looking stressed. "Jessica came by today," she said, her voice tight. "She was crying, saying you've ruined her life." I could feel the anger boiling up inside me again. What did she say? "She just kept going on about how you left her when she needed you the most, and how she doesn't know what to do anymore, my mom replied, shaking her head. I told her she needs to leave you alone, but she wouldn't listen. She said she's desperate. That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to stop this once and for all. I called my lawyer again, explaining what was going on, and he suggested I file for a restraining order. I didn't want to go that far, but at this point, I didn't have a choice. She wasn't going to leave me alone unless I took some serious action. So, I filed for the restraining order. I thought maybe that would scare her enough to finally back off. It was a tough decision, but I couldn't keep living with this constant anxiety, wondering when she was going to show up at my house or my work again. The day of the restraining order hearing came, and Jessica actually had the nerve to show up. She looked like she had been crying, like she was still trying to play the victim, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. I told the judge everything, how she had been harassing me, showing up unannounced, spreading lies about me, and even trying to sue me for child support. The judge didn't take long to make a decision. He granted the restraining order, and Jessica was officially barred from contacting me or coming near me. It was the biggest relief I'd felt in months. I walked out of that courtroom, feeling like I could finally breathe again. I wish I could say that was the end of it, but Jessica didn't go down quietly. Even with the restraining order in place, she still tried to send me messages through mutual friends, trying to get sympathy and making it sound like I was the bad guy. But at least now, I had something legal on my side. If she kept pushing, I knew I had a way to stop her. It wasn't the closure I wanted, but it was the closest I was going to get. At the end of the day, I had to focus on moving forward with my life. I had dreams, goals, and a future ahead of me that didn't involve her. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was free. Update 3. So, after getting the restraining order, I thought things were finally calming down. For the first time in months, I could actually focus on my life and not constantly worry about Jessica popping up out of nowhere. The whole ordeal had left me pretty messed up mentally, but I was determined to move on and put all that behind me. I figured I'd done everything I could to keep her out of my life, and that was it. Turns out, I was wrong. Even with the restraining order in place, Jessica wasn't done trying to make things difficult for me. She didn't try to contact me directly anymore, thankfully, but she started using a different tactic that I didn't see coming. It all started when my cousin Jake called me one afternoon. He sounded weirdly hesitant, which was strange because Jake's usually the kind of guy who just says whatever's on his mind. He goes, "Hey man, I don't know how to tell you this, but Jessica's been talking to people." I was like, "What do you mean, talking to people?" I knew he wasn't talking about normal conversations, so I already had that sinking feeling in my gut. "She's been telling everyone in the group that you're the reason her life is ruined," he continued. "She's making it sound like you abandoned her and the baby, and people are starting to believe her." That hit me like a truck. I couldn't believe it. Even after the restraining order and everything that happened in court, she was still out there spreading lies, and now she was using my friends to try and make me look like the bad guy. I was furious. Like, I couldn't even speak for a minute because I was so angry. "Who's she been talking to?" I finally asked. Jake listed off a few names of people we both knew, people who'd known us back when Jessica and I were still together. Most of them hadn't reached out to me, so I didn't even know this was happening. Apparently, she was making up stories about how I'd left her when she needed me the most, and now she was alone, struggling to raise the baby. She conveniently left out the part where the baby wasn't mine and how she cheated on me. I couldn't let this slide. I wasn't about to just sit there while she tried to turn my friends against me. I started calling people, one by one, explaining the real story. Most of them believed me, especially after I mentioned the paternity test and the restraining order, but a couple of them were already pretty far gone, too deep in Jessica's web of lies. I got messages like, "Dude, she's really struggling and you just left her? That's harsh." Or, "I don't know, man. Maybe you could have helped her out more." It was like no matter how much I explained, some people just couldn't understand the whole picture. They saw Jessica as this poor, helpless girl who got left behind, and no matter what I said, they couldn't let go of that image. But the worst part? There were a few people who outright told me they didn't want to hang out with me anymore. These were people I'd known for years, and suddenly, because of Jessica's lies, they were distancing themselves from me. It was like I was losing friends left and right, and there wasn't much I could do about it. It was frustrating, to say the least. I tried not to let it get to me, but after a while it started to wear me down. I couldn't believe how one person could cause so much damage to my life, even after I thought I was free from her. But despite all that, I wasn't about to let her win. I decided to keep my circle small and focus on the people who actually believed me and supported me. Jake was a huge help during this time, always backing me up and calling people out on their crap when they tried to defend Jessica. He had my back when I needed it the most, and honestly, without him, I don't know if I would have gotten through all of this as easily as I did. Still, things weren't perfect. The rumors kept floating around, and I had to hear from random people about the things Jessica was saying. But I kept my distance and focused on myself. I started preparing for college again, picking up extra shifts to save up some money. I was determined to move on with my life and not let Jessica or her lies hold me back any longer. Then, one day, I got a call from Ryan. Yeah, that Ryan, Jessica's ex and the actual father of her baby. We hadn't spoken since everything went down, so I was surprised to hear from him. I answered the phone, half expecting him to start some drama, but he sounded defeated. "Hey, man," he said, his voice low. I wanted to apologize." Now that threw me off. Apologize? Ryan? This was the guy who had been hooking up with my girlfriend behind my back, and now he wanted to say sorry? For what? I asked, still not sure what was going on. For everything, he said. I didn't know she was going to pull all this on you. She's been telling everyone that I bailed on her too, and I guess I just realized how messed up the whole situation is. Apparently, Jessica had been doing the same thing to him, telling people he was a deadbeat dad, that he'd abandoned her and the baby. She was trying to play both sides, making him look bad to his friends while making me look bad to mine. It was like she was burning every bridge in her life and taking everyone down with her. Ryan went on to explain how he was trying to step up as a father, but Jessica had made it nearly impossible. She was refusing to let him see the baby unless he agreed to get back together with her, which obviously wasn't going to happen. He was just as stuck as I had been. "I don't know what to do anymore," he admitted. "She's out of control." For the first time in this whole mess, I actually felt a little bad for the guy. Yeah, he'd messed up by getting involved with Jessica again, but it was clear he hadn't expected things to spiral like this. And honestly, it felt kind of good to know I wasn't the only one who saw how manipulative she could be. We talked for a while, mostly about how insane the whole situation had become. By the end of the conversation, I realized that while Jessica had caused me a ton of pain, she wasn't going to win. Not with me, and definitely not with Ryan. We were both determined to move on from her and rebuild our lives without her dragging us down anymore. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't instant, but eventually things did start to get better. I went off to college, met new people, and slowly but surely, the drama with Jessica became just a distant memory. Every now and then, I'd hear about her through mutual friends. She'd post something cryptic on social media or try to stir up more drama, but I didn't care anymore. I was finally free, for real this time.